Good early morning. It's joyful Christian Hermit. It's Sunday morning, and this is probably the worst time of the day or night for me. Lots of pain, lots of suffering. Uh, and I woke up very concerned about the neighbor man. I have been concerned about him and his wife for ever since they've moved in, really. And I know the Lord set up this opportunity of forgiveness with the man, and because I had wanted it. I had wanted some means of letting him know that, bygones are bygones. He wasn't going to ask me to forgive him for his icky behavior. He wasn't going to admit to it. He couldn't. He's a lawyer. A former lawyer. He knows, it's illegal. You cannot get into deep trouble. You can be sued. You can be arrested. Don't harass someone. Don't sexually harass someone. But that isn't what got me. It was the how vulnerable and how unsafe someone like that, watching me back and front of the house whenever I'd be out, and with really sick, perverted intentions. So, and what gets to me though is just the depravity, the sadness there. And I don't think I mentioned in this video. I've tried these videos before. Um, he uses drugs. I think that's why he couldn't. Something was off. He was just like hopping around the front yard with his little leaf blower, um, trying to blow those leaves and like wanting to be out there with me. It was strange. And how long he took. Simply, he could have just simply blown those leaves over into the beds and gone home. 5 minutes, 10 at most, and it was a good half hour. I was doing all these other jobs because I had been working out in the front yard, and I was in a mode of being gone, with God. Uh, I was doing the front yard work, and when he came over, and see, I thought it was his wife that had left that note, but I think he wanted to prove that he was an okay person, that he was wanting to do good. But he's such a lost soul. I had found out this was back when when I was asking her about, if she had trouble with him after, I investigated some after what he had said, and just stunned. And he had left. He had flown away then that next morning to see his sick elderly mother in another state where he'd come from. And then, that's when I started dreading his returning, because I didn't want more neighbor troubles. I just didn't want more neighbor troubles. But God gives me these souls, and uh who am I to try to escape it, really? So he's over there. Their little bathroom lights on. I don't, um, on the opposite side of the house. I don't think that they're together in the master bedroom, which is on the far side. I doubt it. He, once he couldn't make any men friends, at first they would talk to him, he'd call out, they'd come over to this fence and talk. No, I mean, I think men sense, they must sense, something's wrong with him, or something, or he says things, or he's uh, unwell in some aspect of his personality. But she told me that he was depressed because they had come here hoping they could, I suppose, a new life or something, and less money. They came with their money and bought the house next door outright, really for rather a high price. But it was at a time everything was very high. It was a seller's market when they moved here. But I said, well, what about church? Have you thought about going to church? Oh, well, he's Jewish. He doesn't want anyone to know because. And I said, well, no one here is going to mind. I said, I don't care what, people aren't like that in this neighborhood. Well, maybe some are. I don't know really. But at the time, I didn't realize this anti-Jewish sentiment was going on. I certainly don't have it. Goodness, that was the Virgin Mary was Jewish. Jesus was reared Jewish. I mean, it's our roots. It's the means by which we have Jesus Christ. So came up through Judaism, Christianity, born out of Judaism, and leading us further. You know, um, Christ Christ came to give Himself to us, and He founded His church. So it is just strange. But oh no, no. I said, well, why doesn't he go to a temple? Well, didn't really have an answer. And what's been on my heart the last couple of days since I let him go ahead and do his what I thought was probably his need to show me that he was making amends, that he wanted to be a good neighbor, give him another chance kind of thing, but without ever addressing or apologizing. But of course, he wouldn't want to admit, because that would make him very legally vulnerable. If I wanted to, I could take action or something, especially if he said, what he had done. But I wouldn't have. I would have rejoiced and given him a proper forgiveness. But still, as a hermit, and with the wife as she is, her personality and her manipulative, usurious personality, because definitely the young woman's not around, hasn't been around, and the wife's there. She was out raking the leaves in the back by herself. Her husband could have gone back there with the leaf blower and helped his wife. That's where all their trees are. 3 big maple trees in the backyard. So they're back. That's why I have so many trees along the side. It helps block. I couldn't handle all the leaves that kept blowing over every fall. And before they lived there, there were trees there when I moved in. And I had trees. I had them removed. They were too close to the house and leaning. I had to remove 5 maple trees. And they were tilted toward the house, too close, over the roof. They'll ruin your roof, the leaves and branches that are over a roof. And my daughter got a tree removed from her townhome. I said, oh, it's going to be into your foundation. It's a big locust tree. I said, it's going to make your roof go bad sooner. And I said, plant a little Japanese maple there if you want something. But she only has a 12-foot deep yard, see. So I love trees. It's just what people do with them, where we humans put them, that is cruel to the tree, because and to the practicality of the structure. These trees, they have big roots. Japanese maples are top feeders. Very fine little roots go out around the top and a big tap root down. They're not going to destroy your foundation. But the regular maples, yes, and oaks and locusts, all the other major trees, the typical So anyway, I have thought, maybe I should do Jewish temples. Do they have groups that go out and meet people? Or I thought maybe I should call and say, well, there's this man who's Jewish next door, and he, he seems lonely or has no friends other than what I think is a drug agent. I'm not going to say that, but I haven't seen the car there. But I usually I wake up in the wee hours and then I fall asleep from maybe 6 until, if I'm awake at 4, a couple hours awake, and then 6 until maybe 8. So I have missed the time when that beat up old station wagon would come. Sometimes an old pickup. So, but I know he has friends from where he came from because he talks with them on the phone. I can hear him. He goes out on his patio. Even in the cold, he'll go out and talk. And he's a bright person and seems to have, very animated, and he's interesting conversations. So he has that. I'm grateful. And I'm concerned for his soul. I have been. But I don't want. I'm a hermit. God doesn't want me out with particular friendships, and I don't have the energy either to do all the work that the woman kept saying she couldn't see to do, and then I realized she could. And they can hire. They have money. They hire. But she did say he won't do anything, and he doesn't. Nothing. He doesn't get the mail. He doesn't take the trash out. Same with the man on the other side. But the man on the other side, he's married to the nice lady who does all the work. But he does ride his big riding lawnmower in there. What little bit of grass they have left. They put gravel most everywhere. They have a tiny little patch in the front yard and just a little circle of grass in the back. And yesterday it brought me such humor. She was out there working. He came around with the riding lawnmower. And he's a big man, but he's given up and he's shrinking. And just sits on his lounger and watches TV all day, she says. And I've seen it. I've seen it in the windows at night, the TV on, and that's where he is. He never comes out other than once a week or once every 2 weeks in the fall. On that big mower, he sits on there, and I tell you, I could have walked faster than how he could mow because it's such a tiny space to get around. So, and she mentioned a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, that he was, maybe going to just get a push mower like that. And she inquired about my mower, my little electric ego mower. It's a little tiny thing, lightweight, and easy to push, and it's like walking with a shopping cart. So about that amount of effort it takes, but I use my legs. It's really good exercise for the legs, and the legs go up and build up your spine. It's good for me, and I enjoy because it's methodical, and I just lose myself away from pain, away from the world, and with God in mowing too. So that's and getting the leaves up. What I see, I wasn't bothered by the leaves. I did look at it this year. I think I commented on my video that it's just going to be another job for me to take care of. And it's a shame that the original owner put a big tree like that right on the line. But, and they're messy. When they get older, the branches keep falling, and it's added work. But it's there. And there was one on the other side on the line, too. That one died. I was thrilled because that had to come down then, because I was getting leaves from both, and it was, but the people who, um, the man one time who, the earlier man with the big family, he did rake a bunch of the leaves off for me from that tree the last year they were there and before the tree died. And last year, this man or woman had their lawn man did it. Maybe he did it on his own accord. Came over and with the leaf blower and got the leaves out, so I didn't have to do it. And I think it's been that way every year, really. I've never had to get those leaves, so but I don't mind doing it, and I like them for the mulch. So I've never been bothered by leaves, other than uh, these neighbors got rid of the huge willow tree. That was hard on me, and that's why I put more trees on the side there. It does keep the leaves from their 3 maples in back coming over, because in the backyard it was a lot of work for me, and it really hurts my back. So that's handled, and I have my own tree in front that has the jumbo leaves, but they're easy to get up, and they drop right down around that tree, and they're fun. So it was worth it. And I didn't plant it near anyone's yard that my leaves would get into their yard. The little Japanese maple leaves fall and they just crumble, so they're not bothering other people. But I'm concerned about this man's soul, and he's there. They are there for a reason. At first, 3 years ago, before the sexual harassment, and realizing he watches me from his windows, it just gives me the creeps. But it's okay. I mean, I can't control what other people do, and I just got to keep praying for him. But at first, I thought, well, God wanted me to witness to them and help the poor woman who couldn't see. And but no, she's an operator with her selective sight. So, and even if she can't, even if it is selective, like I feel better some days than others, I could be considered a selective pain person to others. So maybe she does have some kind of some days better than others with her visual. But she seems resourceful in getting people to do things for her. And that's not my role. I'm in over my head with my own mess. Definitely. I got into something that I told the Lord I wasn't going to do. I got taken up with another renovation here. And God knows that I enjoy it. I admit I enjoy it. And I still do. But it's not what I said. And it's, I am cutting out time that I could be spending luxuriating in God and reading all these wonderful people's lives, biographies I have, and of more time just in prayer. But the pain, see, that's how I woke up. This is a hard time pain-wise for me this time of night, early morning. My whole left arm goes numb, and it gets it's numb plus it's excruciating, and it's I have just this terrible pain up in my shoulder, and it doesn't need surgery or anything that I know of. It's just coming from my neck, perhaps, I don't know. And I haven't been going to physical therapy anymore because that man got bored and was lying about Medicare being bothered that I came as a chronic patient and that he might get in trouble. He said, well, they haven't yet, but they might. And this is the second time he tried to get rid of me because he doesn't like to do hands-on work with patients. He's the owner, and he's really sort of in some aspects probably burned out from physical therapy himself. And he likes talking with people and sharing his problems and having the sympathy and all from various clients, but about his daughter or this or that problem in his life. But uh, so he uses it as therapy time and to get through it because he's bored, working on my neck. And he's weak. He's weak in his hands. My daughter does better digging in it, getting into the muscles. I just needed him to get some of the sore pressure points, and he didn't seem to be able to do that even so. And he's got all these different advanced degrees and spines and things, but he was tired of it. He didn't want to touch, he didn't want to bother. So, and was bored with, you know, wanted a new person to talk over his problems with, I think. And I just didn't want to bother with it. So I could go back, I could call and go back and ask for a different person. Um, just as long as they have some hand strength and will just keep loosening my neck and my upper back. I can't reach the spot. I can't reach the spot that tightens up. So, but my neck is very, very severe, just physically, neurologically. It needed surgery 2.5 years ago, and the surgeon doesn't want to do more surgery. And he doesn't want, because it's going to be a life-threatening surgery for my neck. And as long as I can use my arms and it's not life-threatening for me, he won't operate, he said. It has to wait till it becomes life-threatening to me for him to do the life-threatening surgery, and I don't want the surgery. But this agony is hard, I have to say. I mean, it's at the point, I wake up just in tears. It's just terrible. But I'm using this time, at least this morning, to have concern for this man's soul next door. His name's Rick. Rick. I've given him the name of Scruffy from the very beginning because he started out dressing scruffy, sort of like a hipster, a rocker, thinking, I guess, that would attract friends for himself. And that persona didn't go over in this area at all with the older men. And there was one man, he walks this lovely sheepdog every day out in the common area. He had a knee replacement that didn't go well, and they redid it for him. I said, "You're fortunate they cared." I said he wasn't going to bother with mine. He didn't want to redo mine. He said, "Nothing more to be done. Done, nothing more." And I agree, why bother? Uh, I can walk on it. It's painful all the time, and that's another thing. Early morning, it all swollen up and stiff and painful too, that left knee. But he had a second surgery. I talked to him a little last night when evening was walking by with his dog. Heather is his beautiful sheepdog, and he used to. The first summer these people moved in, he would talk with the man, but no more. Hasn't since that first summer. So I observe a lot here. I could say I'm like the bush or the tree that's out there taking it all in, and people usually don't notice me or don't bother, and that's how I need it. For my vocation. But it's not that I don't care. Hermits do care, and I pray for people, and I've had a great deal of concern for them next door. And I figure if God puts someone by me with problems, he does it for a reason. He knows I will be concerned for their souls, and I am. I just am not called to be, uh, uh, and actively involved with their problems. That didn't go anywhere. Not with the woman. They're not interested in church or his temple. And but that would be good for him to have his, like John Donne said, follow in the footsteps of your pact, of your group, from where you came, your history, your upbringing, your religious roots, even. Be connected. And I had mentioned, well, Jewish people go to like these non-denominational churches or get involved in groups. I said it's not around here. There isn't that kind of anti-Semitic ugliness. People in this neighborhood aren't into that. We have quite a mix of. I'm Catholic. I know of one other Catholic. There's Mormons, lots of Mormons, evangelicals, plenty of evangelicals, and people who don't go anywhere. And I'm sure there's probably someone else in here who's Jewish, at least one or more, or several. This is life. And maybe some Muslim, who knows, probably. So I'll ask the Lord, I think praying for him. And if they say hi, I'll say hi. That's what bothered me. I thought, I know the police said do not have any contact, none. And I realized the other day when he was out there far longer than it took to blow those leaves, and he hadn't even registered in his mind when I kept saying, no, just blow them. You don't have to take them away. Just blow them into the beds. That's all you have to do. Blow them into these. I even pointed out which ones, because I said, they'll help the plants. They'll help the roots. They'll keep them warmer over the winter. And he sort of hopping around out there. He's nervous or thrilled, or I don't know what exactly why, but it didn't register with him. And I had to repeat like 3 times and then show even. Got down, moved the leaves myself into the bed some. And because he wasn't making any progress with his leaf blower. He said it was his new toy he wanted to use. Please let me do this, please. But he had to hire somebody to do his. So I don't know. Caleb, a really nice young man named Caleb, does their yard work. Except she was out and back raking because they had extra leaves, I guess, and maybe she wanted to have a little something to do. But yeah, so there's a reason. There's always a reason. But I have learned it's not for me to become actively involved. Like, that's what I thought with the one house that I would have been fortunate to have been able to stay there, and that's the one in the Midwest, that the little house that was built, had built a little subdivision house. Perfect end-of-life house for me. And all my beautiful gardens there, but that woman was mentally ill and demonic. And her husband was very evil, and I had a forewarning of it. But I misinterpreted it to something beautiful, Oh, well, he's in a coffin leering. I ignored the leer, but that he's going to maybe die of cancer. He's a heavy smoker. And I could have gotten I just had it staked out when I had this warning dream at the time, but I thought it was showing me that I was to help them, that maybe he'd have cancer and die, and I should be there to help the woman somehow in her grieving process. I was so far off. Wishful thinking. No, it was a warning. Don't build here. This is trouble coming. Demonic trouble. And creepy man. And crazy wife. Mentally ill and evil. So, and it all ended in just a horrible ordeal for me. 6 years I endured that because I didn't want to lose my parents' hard-earned money and all the beautiful gardens. So, and I had nowhere to go really. But then the daughter who was here now was out in the Seattle area and then wanted me to come out there. And the other daughter would have had me come closer to them, but she doesn't say. So I didn't know, I didn't realize, and then I saw the island and was smitten by its beauty and also by its isolation. Ideal for a hermit, it was indeed, it was. But I couldn't afford to stay once I had the house finished. And would have been ideal. I could have just stayed there. But, oh well, not really. I needed pain help. I needed medicine, and they weren't going to give me any more on the island. All the doctors in the island clinic, and I tried the mainland too. I guess I must just look like an old lady drug addict to them. So, I think they go by appearance, or I don't know, imagination or something. I'd had records from before, but they weren't. I guess because I just keep pushing through. I keep pushing. God has given me this strength. Thank you, Lord, to keep pushing, to keep going. Because what else am I to do? What are we all to do? We just keep going. Simply keep going. Physically. And of course, spiritually. But with the spiritual, keep the body going as long as we can. Until we absolutely cannot anymore. And then we fold and we stay in bed. And I guess I'm very, God has given me a lot of push. And having these tasks to do, like the gardening work. See, he knows, I won't let those plants die out there if I can at all help it, or not be prepared for winter. I've got to get them set for winter and all cozy and in good places in the ground. So, and get the old rose bushes that were no longer blooming and a mess, had to get them out. So, bury our own dead. My spiritual dad said that once. We bury our dead. It was in a situation, it was a football game, a Notre Dame football game. Someone had taken him to it. And of course, him being Irish, he was delighted. And it was raining, it started to rain, and this is the story I heard from the man who took him, that it was, Notre Dame was way behind. No way were they going to win. It was the third quarter, and the man asked, and the dog was like 90 at the time, or 92 even. And it was a night game. It was cold. It was raining, late autumn. And he says, well, should we go? And the Irish da turned to him and said, we bury our own dead. And stayed they did through the bitter end. Well, I think, that no one had thought to take him to a Notre Dame football game before. And he was so thrilled he didn't want to leave. Why would he? His big chance, his outing, and he no longer could drive, and so that was great. We bury our own dead. So stay with it, people. Stay with it, and help me pray for Rick Scruffy. He's gotten away from the scruffy look now, but it hasn't helped him with friends here, I'm thankfully still can talk on the phone with his old friends and, musician types, people who like music. He likes rock and metal. I just praise God because his wife had mentioned 3 years ago he was setting up his or that he was so depressed he hadn't set up his music room. And if it was going to be right across from my bedroom here. And I have trouble sleeping if there's noise and things. So, and even if I'm suffering during the day and laying here, it's hard to have noise like that. So I'm grateful that he didn't, or else he put in soundproofing or something maybe. But I haven't heard any loud music. Only one time I heard some music in the summer with maybe they had a door open or something. But I feel bad he just stays in. Now, in the summer, he'll be out on the back deck, but not even that much because that time that the garage door was open for a day and a half, and I thought they were gone. So I was concerned somebody had gone in and burglarized during the night and just cleaned them out. But the wife was gone, but he wasn't. He just never came out of his house. Not to get the mail, not for anything. So then when I found out, when the police came, I called for a check for them. Said, I think, just concerned there'd been vandalized or if he's in there, that something's happened to him. And even with them pounding on the door, he didn't come for a long time. And I think they got his cell number from the wife. And because I gave them the wife's cell number, I didn't realize whose number it was, but gave it to them. And she was in another state visiting her daughters. And well, he should be there. And when they said, well, he's supposed to be in there, but he's not coming to the door, I thought, oh dear, he's a suicide case. But no, he was in there. I think he probably didn't want to come to the door. Maybe he wasn't in a very good state. Didn't want the police to suspect. But he finally did. And he'd just been in there and he was oblivious that his garage door had been open for a day and a half. Oh, it's a sad situation. So, reminder for me to pray more. And I can handle it. My daughter, I told her, oh dear, and I said, I just don't want any more, don't want to involve. She's just, oh, I said, good grief, I'm 74 and a half, and there's nothing special at all about my sunken lost rear. And I said, it's just pathetic, and it gives me the creeps to think I'm being watched in that intent, and light. And she says, oh, just let him enjoy himself. I said, are you kidding? Good grief. No, we're made for more. We're made for more than that. And so I'll keep praying, and I am going to, if they say hi or whatever, I'll say hi. But no one else does. I'm the one that has gotten the other people to say hi. And I was stunned the other day when I was doing the video that Jason across the street initiated. Wasn't that something? Because they've been all closed off. I'm on this Uplift the World campaign. I have been for a long time, actually, at least in greeting people and trying to build them up, like the young couple that had to move in with the mom and dad with their family. They evidently weren't making it. The dad told the other neighbor that they can't afford to buy the house, but they're living with them at least until spring, when the parents are going to sell their house and retire and move. So the young woman is such a good mother, and I tell her, and I call them the beautiful family. They are. And but I don't know, they haven't offered their names or anything. They never initiate, but she does respond back now, which is, and I don't need it for myself, but I I want to give love in an easy way, and it's not that I'm involving deeply, but if anyone needed help, I would help. As far as, if there were a problem, they were ill or sick, or, I would chip in, or they needed an ambulance called, or if we're injured in the yard, I would go over and see what the needs are and things. So, hermits, we're not to be cold and unfeeling and unhelpful. And when God asks of us hospitality, we are to give it. So that's one thing. For Barbara, I'm going to do a video for Barbara about why I am as I am as a hermit, because it doesn't fit with her idea of a hermit. And I think they're good questions she asks, because it does seem strange, some of the things that I do or don't do. Don't seem to her like a hermit, and they don't to others, I'm sure, also. So I'm going to dedicate a video, try to put it all together in that. But hospitality is one thing that I don't think Barbara realizes, that hermits are called by God to be hospitable when opportunities are brought to them. When someone knocks on the door, for example, we're to open it and find out the need. Like yet another young man, at least once a month, and during the summer, twice or three times a month, young men come through here selling windows. They work for a window company, somebody who wants to install windows. And there are so many window companies that I can't imagine why they can stay, or how they can stay in business, because we've all had everybody's had their windows done. They've been through here so many times, and I always say I'll pray for them. I get there first, and I do pray. I pray that they get some business, or that these young people get another job. Something that they'll earn some money doing, because they're not going to get any business in this neighborhood. It's already been saturated by window sellers. For every summer I've been here 7 summers. And this last young man, I did tell him, I just stuck my head out the door because the dogs were just barking and barking, desperate to get out and leap and pet and get petted and lick his face. And Lovey wanted to stand up and hug, because that's what he does. And I wasn't about to open the door and have the dogs just go nuts. But they sound ferocious. Lovey's bark sounds ferocious. And so it does sort of help a little bit. So I said, well, I'm sorry, I've got dogs in here. I can't open the door or come out. But I said, what do you need? Because I knew window seller, sure enough. And I still have stickers on my, I said, well, mine are new. I've had them replaced. I'm sorry. But I said, I will pray for you that you get business. But I finally said, I need to tell you that there have been so many others through the neighborhood, at least once or twice a month. So I said, you can try. But I said, I'm going to pray that you get sales, because I know you're trying to make a living. But also consider something else. Hands-on. See, young people, they don't want to do the work. If somebody would come along and say, I'm just willing to do some manual labor for minimum wage, I'd hire right then and there. Oh, come help me get all the rest of this yard in shape. Help me clean the eaves out. Help me get on top of my workload here. So, but no, they just want to sign you up to sell some average windows and call them great. And people come too from California, this other state, they pouring in here, and who don't even have any background in what they're selling or doing. Mike, the tiler, the professional tiler, told me that he encounters. He's got all this competition now from people coming from where he came, but he at least came with official training. He had spent 2 years as an apprentice and intern for a tile company to learn the trade, and had been in the trade for several years, many years, I think like 15. So he knew what he was doing and had the experience and had a license from the other state that was more involved. And here they can just call and pay the money and get a license, say, oh, yes, I'm a tiler. I could get a license for tiling, and I would have more experience than a lot of them. So, but they come and they think, oh, this is a good way to make money and an easy way, because they get lots of money for tiling here. That's why I'm doing my own. I'm going to do that backsplash in the bathroom, pretty sure. So unless something bad happens to my neck in the meantime. It's not lifting overhead. That's why I had Mike do my shower, because the big tiles had to be lifted up high, and it's too much for my back and neck. But we'll see. And he gave me a good price on that, but the backsplash, that price was bad. I felt $700 to do the tile across the 72-inch vanity and a little bit on the sides of it. And around the tub, he wants $1,200. Just, no, that's too much, I think. So I have to watch my pennies. And that's a lot of pennies, $1,200. So I'm going off top. Anyway, just rambling here. But I've taken my mind off the pain. So thank you, Lord. And please pray for Rick next door, and hope you understand a little more, Barbara, about the hospitality aspect of hermits. Yeah, I'm going to put it all together in a video. Maybe today. I hope today. God bless you all. I'm very concerned about my soul, and I'm very concerned about aspects that Barbara asked about. But, any of you can ask God and ask Him why. I'd appreciate it. He hasn't told me exactly why I have to be as I am.